All right, I'd like to open the Westborough Historical Commission meeting. It's 7 o'clock on my watch for Wednesday, January 31st, 7 p.m. And today we have obviously several items on the agenda, but the first one is, I think, the most important today, at least. It says 7:05, but we'll be talking about it for a little bit longer than that. This is the discussion of the golf club, and we were hoping in our last meeting that we had in November, we were discussing the recent history of the golf club use committee and these sorts of things, the events that have been occurring over the past 6 months or so with regard to the building and the property. And we, although technically we are not charged with anything specific decision-making yet at this time, there's a lot of flurry of activity and discussion in the public forum and the public spaces about the building. And because it's a historic building, we thought we would start talking about it, and we were very hopeful that members of the community would come out at our January meeting. We apologize for last Wednesday. Some things beyond our control took over, and we were forced to reschedule that meeting. So we're happy to see people here tonight. And so we're hoping very much that this could operate in a way like a open session of comments. We're recording it here with Westborough TV. And we very much would like to hear what people have to say about the golf club building. Yeah, I mean, with that, I'll just open the floor. Are there any comments? The Historical Commission isn't really charged right now to make any specific decisions regarding the building, but we are obviously aware of what's going on, and we very much hope to receive some feedback from the community, whether it's tonight or whether you want to email us or something like that. We're welcome. We're happy to receive any comments or opinions about the building and its history, etc. Or if you had any questions for us, we'd be happy to talk about those as well.
How will we be charged with discussing it?
So officially, according to my knowledge, the record, we would be required to make a decision regarding the golf club when we receive a demolition permit.
And they haven't received?
We have not, to my knowledge, we have not received a demolition permit for the building.
And that comes from the building department or DPW?
Building department.
Yeah.
Community development.
Does anybody know why they haven't sent something to us or asked us?
I don't know.
So they're just not ready yet.
Possibly, yeah.
So what's not ready?
I assume they're not ready yet.
Right, decision hasn't been made.
That's a very formal step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The selectmen are saying yes.
The selectmen apparently
That the
voted.
decision hasn't been made.
The selectmen voted to do it.
No,
To
they haven't.
agree with the
To
recommendation.
accept the golf club use committee's recommendation. That's what they
But
have accepted.
that's not the same as
Sending
actually.
demolition request.
Because, I mean, the demolition costs money. There'd have to be an appropriation, I assume, so there are steps. Steps.
We're basically doing this, and the reason we commissioned the Form B in the fall, and the reason we're holding this is for an information gathering, because we're trying to be ahead of the process, right? Trying to be ahead of the game. We don't want to have to make all of our decisions after a demo permit has come in already. So we wanted to start the discussion, because there were indications in some of even the Golf Club Use Committee's survey that people were interested in keeping the building. That was kind of like one of the questions. So we're interested in hearing from people who felt that way, because we're tasked with preserving and maintaining physical history of Westborough. So. If no one has any questions yet, we can I can briefly go over the Form B. The Form B, for those not familiar with it, is a pretty standard form for the Commonwealth. It's a form produced by the Massachusetts Historical Commission for the state level. It's intended to document the reasons and specific facts about a building, about a property. Gives a kind of a detailed history. It's by a historian who puts together the data based on sources. They put photographs together, all kinds of material. It's a research project, basically, that they put together that tries to provide as much historical information about a building that is available. So, the good and the bad is that any building, Massachusetts is lucky to have, thousands, tens of thousands of historic buildings, obviously. But not all of them have been, have a Form B form filled out for them and registered with MACRIS, registered with the state. There's a database called MACRIS that houses all of these Form Bs, and they're all accessible there on the Commonwealth's website. So eventually that's where this document goes. And it is there in order to basically provide a base from which a discussion can happen. Sometimes it memorializes buildings that have been torn down. Sometimes its functions protect buildings, but its main function is to gather information, data, as much knowledge as we can about our historic structures. And this one was commissioned by us, by the historian Stacy Spies. And she gives an architectural description and a historical narrative, which you can see for yourself. Provides bibliography of the references, etc. She did research, the Worcester County Registry of Deeds, etc. She provides all kinds of, like a bibliography, has a plan, has a site plan, basically, of where we're talking about to try to locate the structure. Then this gets sent to the state, they review it and put it in the database, so it's accessible to the public. It's comprised of historic photos, and because looking online, there's a variety of different sources. This is generally considered to be the best, most accurate historical survey of the building, which dates its construction to 1871 there, you can see. And then there's an analysis. She wasn't, many times they're not able to access the interior, so there are some questions that remain, but nonetheless, she did a pretty thorough job here. And she also recommends it for the National Register of Historic Places based on specific criteria, which is its culturally historic significance, primarily. And that description is the last page, where she's recommending it for that. This document is on our website, on the town page, that you can access anytime. Does anyone have any questions, comments?
According to an email that I read today, this has not been submitted to the state yet.
Okay.
Is that correct? Where does it sit?
My understanding, maybe I was misinformed, was that the consultant sort of automatically submits this to the state. But apparently, if that's not the case, then we can do that. That's not a problem.
Good question.
Yes.
Bob Peterson, 9 Golden Court, and I am an avid golfer at Westborough Golf Club and have been for years. I am not a historian, nor am I an architect. I'm a golfer. I understand some of the purpose of the Historical Commission with this, but I have seen many golfers there I've seen many people going to the restaurant there when it was open. I have never seen anything that I would consider to be of historical significance there. I would find it really hard to believe that the building historically today is the way it was in 1871, which would, in my non-historical background, would simply say, so what's historical about it? I have seen an $800,000 or roughly that area of demolition. It's actually a little bit confusing to me why. I understand why the Historical Commission would be involved. I can't understand why anyone would want to save it. And the part that is even more difficult for me to understand is, so if you save it for a historical purpose, what are you going to do with it for a historical purpose? 90% of the people who use it today, or maybe even 100% of the people who use it today, are people who are playing golf there. And those who aren't are probably sliding down the 7th hole on a tube or out on snowshoes or cross-country skis. It's, from a layperson's perspective, it's a little bit hard for me to understand why that would be considered. As a novice in commenting about this type of thing, I personally would like to see it torn down, because whatever you're going to do with that, if you decide to save it, you're going to find unexpected problems with an 1871 house. And I have no idea if there's asbestos in there or there are other issues in there, but I suspect an $800,000 renovation cost would be a guess, and you will find some more things. Again, as a novice, I have never had an upgrade done to my house that ran for the amount of money they said it was. It was always something that was unusual. Yeah, the sink needs to be replaced, the plumbing needs to be replaced, there's something there. And I would find it really hard to believe that that cost would be met. Personally, I would prefer to see a new pro shop put in there. I prefer to see a smaller restaurant put in there. I know there's a solid argument to be said, why would the town go in the restaurant business? My view on that is times change. I suspect 50 years ago in this town, you didn't have a recreation center. I would suspect 50 years ago you didn't have a senior center. I would suspect 50 years ago you didn't have Meals on Wheels. Times change, and so, and we are not going to stop time from changing. We can do what we will with it. If there was truly a historical purpose, if George Washington slept there, okay, I think that's a valid argument, and you could make that. If you found the Declaration of Independence there, you might want to make a valid argument for that. But it's, frankly, as a novice, it's a little bit confusing, aside from what the duties of the Historical Commission are. Anyway, it's a little bit confusing to me why anyone would think this is a historical building worth saving. And if you save it, are you going to replicate it? And how many people are going to visit it on a daily basis to not play golf? How many people are going to come in and look at it as a historical building? What purpose is it going to serve as a historical building? It's, again, total novice, but it's just a little confusing to me why it would even be considered, other than the fact that there are steps that you go through.
Thank you.
Sally Peterson, 9 Golden Court, also a member of the golf course. But the building is not attractive. It's not an attractive building right now. The restaurant looks out over West Main Street, when the back of it is the most beautiful maintained golf course you'd find in a municipally owned course. It's beautiful. Drought, floods, whatever, that course is always in great shape. The building is not attractive. You can drive by there. It's not. And the beautiful deck they put on, which is a great place to have a bite to eat, great place to hear music, but it's not attractive. It's this brown deck that they added on to, but it's not anything that's beautiful to look at. It isn't. I fully support the findings of the commission that studied it all fall. and was in every nook and cranny of that building. I support the selectmen's decision to demolish it, and let's put up something. I'm not thinking of a big function room. It's not the place. There are function rooms all around, but that's not one of them. Put in a nice restaurant. My husband and I were frequent diners at the restaurants that have been there for the last 30 years, whichever it was. Every 10 years it changed over. We were frequent diners there. We drive by that golf course to and from wherever we're going. The parking lot is always full. Make a reservation like every other restaurant in town. But it's not a beautiful building to restore. It's a building that was beautiful at its time. It was a gift that was given. But right now, it's time to demolish and put something up there that represents something in colonial Westborough, if you will, on colonial Main Street, where there are some beautiful homes, and make it attractive, address the kitchen, address the bathrooms, address the basement, but don't spend $800,000 to renovate something that very few of us in this room would be willing to put that amount of money into a structure that really is not serving its purpose. If we want a restaurant there, which a lot of us do, let's put something in that serves the community, because right now that building does not.
Yeah, Kristen, maybe you could explain what the process is as far as the Historical Commission goes, because you're just being really asked whether or not this building has any historical or cultural significance, that it should be saved and not demolished. And this is really just a delay, not a saying that it's going to be demolished. This is just a demolition delay. So maybe you could explain to people here what the purpose of the Historical Commission's review is.
So the Historical Commission's review occurs when a demolition permit is pulled, the demolition permit is sent to us. Then that's when we come in. Anything built prior to 1950, we have to review it and we have to analyze it. That's either the building at that point, we look up the Form B and it exists, or we have to hire someone to do a Form B for us, or et cetera. That's typically when we get the Form B done. We noticed earlier that there had never been a Form B done for some reason. So we got a Form B done, and the historian presents us with this report. We discuss it. We may have to go look at it. Sometimes we get a tour of the building in question. There's a variety of different things that can happen. But typically we're asked to make a pronouncement, right? We have to we have about 15, well, in the warrant, we're asking for 30 days to make that decision, because sometimes it's difficult if there's no extant material on a building to create the report that fast. So typically it takes us at least 2 weeks to get the report done, to try to figure out what's going on, for us to make an assessment. Also, it would be nice to have it not have to call a special meeting for that we could do it during our regular monthly meeting. And then at that point we discuss the report, we discuss our field trip or whatever we've been able to do on our own in terms of research. And at that point we ask, or we suggest, what we can do is provide a demolition delay, and that basically I'm not sure exactly what the number of months is on that. It's 6, 9, or there's options, I think.
It's 9.
It's 9 only, okay. So we can add a 9-month demolition delay onto that, and then that act spurs discussion, and so then it becomes a real, then we have an open hearing on basically, similar idea of what we're doing here, but it's a little bit more formal. And some of us may get up and give presentations based on arguing one point or the other. Obviously, if we issue a demolition delay, we're advocating for the preservation of the building, typically. So we've had to do that before. And then that basically, we try to spur public commentary and public interest. Sometimes it's more successful than other times. The Spur House was a good success story. I think it's well, there's a couple examples I won't get into right now, but that's basically the process of how it works.
I would encourage you, if you have the opportunity or request the opportunity, to tour every nook and cranny of that building, from the basement to upstairs and every place in between, so that you too. Pardon?
I was gonna ask the select people present, can we have a tour?
Absolutely give a tour, and I think we've been talking about, I think we're gonna have an open house for the whole community before town meeting, so I think there's a citizen's petition that we've seen on this, as well as the town may come forward based on the results of the committee. So anytime we have the keys to it, we own it. The town owns it. So.
As I say, I would encourage you all to do that, to start in the basement and work your way up into the whole thing, and I think you'll be able to make a more informed decision moving forward.
Yeah, that'd be great, because up to this point, we haven't really had an architect or historian involved in the process, so it's been some unknowns, I guess. This is the first sort of official, even exterior look that we've had so far. But there was a question. Yeah.
I'm Maura Shani, and I live at 8 Kendall Drive, and I was on the building committee. So I guess, Mrs. Peterson brought it up, but my question was, have any of you toured the building? Because I have been in every nook and cranny of that building, and you would be very shocked at what you see. There's not a whole lot saving. I'm wondering why, when we did our survey, when we did our due diligence and we looked into whether it was historic, why no one ever came to the building committee and suggested that this was something that you were thinking was a historic building, because as far as we knew, it was not. There is, as far as I could see, touring it, and there was nothing in there that you could, laminate floors, there's carpets that you stick to, there's bathrooms that are probably 60 years old. It is a very rough shape building. And from the pictures that I've seen of the past, it doesn't even look like the original house from the 1800s, late 1800s, I believe. I'm not exactly sure. So I think maybe you should all go on a tour and then reassess. As far as I know, there's been no warrant brought before town meeting to even have a demolition. There's been no decision made. Nothing has been made. So I'm just wondering where all of this came from. I would understand if there was a demolition permit pulled, how you would then get involved. But since none of you have been in the building, I just don't understand where this is all coming from. Again, why no one came to the committee 6 months ago when we were meeting weekly and doing our homework and having people in to talk, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Could I offer another comment also? If, as a golfer, if you take a tour of the building, take a tour of the pro shop there, and then if you want to drive 4 miles, go over to Highfields and look at the pro shop there. The pro shop at Highfields is what you see at golf courses. The pro shop at Westborough is not what you see at golf courses. Now, you can argue I have a bias towards golf. Clearly, I've already stated that, no question about it. But also, if you go there during the summer on a nice day, it's hard to get a tee time because Westborough residents are using the golf course. It is used a great deal. And so if you're going to serve the residents, all restaurants, whatever your choice is, if you're going to serve the residents of Westborough, take a look at what the pro shop, this is not an issue for Matt, the pro there. This is an issue of the building. And if you want to just drive 4 miles, go over to Highfields and take a look at what a pro shop looks like. And as Sally has said, if you were to go within a 1-hour drive, because fortunately being retired and loving golf with my group of friends, we've seen many of the golf courses. The golf course at Westborough is in the top 5 conditions of anything within an hour here. Now, we're talking about Hockenton Country Club, which is a private course that you pay to a fee, so on and so forth. It is well cared for. The golf course is a great course in terms, not so much fun going up and down the hills, but it is always kept in great shape. And so go over to the pro shop at Highfields in Grafton and take a look at what a pro shop should look like.
And while you're there, have a bite to eat in their restaurant, because their restaurant is lovely with a very, very basic menu.
Ian, is there anything on the warrant on this item?
Not yet.
I haven't read the warrant.
No, not yet.
I would just finalize. Is there a plan to put something on the warrant?
There is discussion on it. That was the plan, is to put something on there. We don't have it on the warrant yet, but we still have a month before the warrant closes. So I would anticipate they'll probably do something.
I do have one more comment, and that's about the condition of the building. If you were to save it and you somehow it was decided that it's a historic building, to fix everything in there and just one for one, so to leave it exactly the same, which if you go through there, you might find that maybe the staircase going upstairs might be historic, but nothing else in there can be, no floors, nothing. It would cost $1 million just to make it the way it is and fix everything the way it is. To make it into a restaurant that someone would want to rent and pay actual rent would cost quadruple the amount, because it would take so much work to fix that building. It's just not laid out. The upstairs is not usable. The downstairs is not usable. The main floor is in very bad disrepair.
So Shelby Marshall, 7 Charles Street, also a member of the select board. So I fully recognize the authority of and the role of the Historical Commission, and echo the suggestion of touring the building, because I think seeing is certainly believing. But from a historical perspective, I guess, and as I like to look at things collaboratively, right? So there may be elements of the building that, for example, the porch detail where you have exposed rafter tails that, sort of give the building a certain feel. I would think the select board, as it goes through its process under its authority, could take potentially suggestions from the Historical Commission as the project is bid out, the look and the feel. We desire this, we don't desire that, under advisement. And I think a collaborative process is always a better process. Not saying everyone wants to be adversarial, but I think that kind of will yield a better process. We certainly recognize the need to continue to have a pro shop that is upgraded. Doesn't necessarily have to be upscale, but certainly upgraded. The desire for a restaurant, the community has been very clear, and all of this has been well documented through the building committee reuse that Ian and Maura served on. So I would just encourage a collaborative process. And I think the sooner those discussions start happening, perhaps the chair and vice chair, I think the better we will be as a community for it. So thanks for the opportunity.
I mean, just to add on to that, I think I agree 100%. And I think that, honestly, I think involving us a little bit earlier would also be very helpful, because we could be partners in this process. We could have toured the building, we could have looked at it because it's basically engineers who looked at it and they give a very specific type of report, which is fine, but it's a very specific type of engineering report.
Just like this one, right?
Right,
So
this is a very historic report.
Right.
So it would, I think, I was able to look at some of the video, and I think there were questions about historicity and historical value asked to a variety of different people who don't have a historic background. And most of the people in the films were saying, well, I'm not a historian, but this is what I think, So it's like, and I was, in some of these I was like, well, why didn't they involve us a little bit? Maybe it's because our official role has a very specific definition of when we come into play. But I think while that is the case, it might just make everything smoother and more collaborative if we could, and the question is how could that have been different, or how could that have changed, rather than as just an individual going formally involving the historical commission? I mean, I don't know, it's a good question.
And I guess I would say we are where we're at, right? So
Yeah.
the process is where it's at, so how do we move forward together? I mean, because at the end of the day, this building will come down to taxpayers saying yay or nay at a price tag, and in a concept they're either going to support or not support, regardless of what positions they hold and what boards. So, and I think we have to think about this. We all wear our hats, right? You know, you're on this commission for a reason, and myself on the select board. So I think that, you know, I think that there's a win-win here. I don't know what that is yet because we don't even know what the building might look like, right? We just have sort of these concepts of what the building could hold and what potential it could have. So let's all kind of work together going forward. So.
Yeah, Ian Johnson, 9 Bursatham, so I apologize for introducing myself before, but as Shelby said, that I think, yeah, what happened in the past, I think we still have time. I mean, again, nothing's there yet. The town, as we all know, anything that moves forward has to be voted on by town meeting. The select board can't make that decision, and well, make the decision what we want to do, but the town has to vote on, town has to fund it. I think the next step of what would be on the warrant, if it moves forward at this time, and it hasn't been something that the select board has acted on at this point, would be to have funds to do design and architectural work. So I think stuff can be done before town meeting, because we have 7 weeks roughly before town meeting, but also even if it moves forward, having that collaboration, I think makes a ton of sense. We can bring that back to the select board and working together and not be adversarial. We're all one town, we should be working together on this. So.
And just, if I may, to Ian's point, I think that the most successful, and I am sort of thinking in terms of passing votes on town meeting floor, the most successful warrants are those that have been a collaborative process across before, you know, it gets into the warrant and it's on town meeting floor. So whether it's a citizen's petition, I mean, that's, you know, that kind of takes down its own path. I think when boards and committees work together and they've had opportunity to voice concerns and questions, right, and ideas, that ultimately is a more successful, and I don't mean like in kumbaya, like on town meeting floor, but it results in a better dialogue and article and presentation on town meeting floor than kind of, you know, people being at odds and like, oh, I wasn't invited to this meeting or whatever, you know. So I think we have to like put that all behind us and let's move forward and, you know, figure it out.
Just one question, Hazel Nursery. Is there any funding that the Historical Commission or the town can look into on this project? Has there been any look at something like that? I mean, I know that, you know, putting something before the town, if you can come in and say, and we're also pursuing, or there may be available grant money. So I don't know whether maybe someone in the Historical Commission or in the town can maybe look at this, which could then be part of a discussion on a warrant before the town, because I think it generally makes such a difference when you can find see if there's some alternative funding available for something like this.
My sense is, from a design perspective, that's probably going to have to be much like what we've seen with schools and other, you know, buildings. Is that probably is a community commitment of funding, whether there's opportunity, you know, in terms of how the building gets financed and put together, and
yeah, I don't know.
It's a great question.
I'm throwing it up in the air.
Yep. Point made.
Yeah, I think one of the things that came up in the building reuse committee has been discussed is that the hope is that whatever's done here can be done without costing the taxpayers anything. And that was one of the things, and Peterson brought this up about being able to put a viable pro shop and a viable restaurant in there. I mean, right now, because of things happen, I mean, you know, you couldn't get a rent that would pay, but if we think build something new, which I think speaking for the committee, you know, could basically design in a way that you could get enough money that would pay the bonds that you would have to take out to build the thing. I do think, to Ms. Shunny's thing, that in looking at it with the small size, without doing major renovations, I'm not sure that you could get rent that would suffice to say that it wouldn't cost taxpayers money. And I think, and this is me personally speaking, not as a select board or as a resident, I don't think that I want to pay taxpayer money to do that. I'd rather have it be done and paid for by, in essence, user fees, which is the nice thing about the golf course. Is talked about the golf course, except for one time for a small amount of money, has always funded itself. Taxpayers don't pay for that golf course. It's paid by users. And I'd love to keep that building there, upgrade it, but have it not cost the taxpayers any money.
That was our goal as a building committee, was what could we bring into the town that wouldn't cost the taxpayers anything, so, because there's so many things going on, the rec building, and there's always schools, everything, so we were very cognizant of taxpayers and not having to pay additional money.
Ryan Mancini, 10 Spring Street. I'm not on a committee or anything, but just a local kid who moved here a few years ago. But I do work for a general contractor. Renovating this, it's not so much even what you can see, it's what you can't see. Once you start tearing down walls and seeing what's behind those is where the real disasters are going to be. If we can see it on the outside, it's always just going to be 10 times worse whatever you start finding. I haven't toured the whole building, but knocking it down would, and building something better would be, I think, way more effective for the town, is what's already kind of been echoed. But more of a reason for why I'm speaking is I'm also an avid golfer. And as what's previously been stated, and I want to echo it because I think it's very important, it is one of the best public golf courses around. It's beautiful. And yes, the hills can, be a little much at times, but it's, in my opinion, it's bar none around here. And I think a building should match that. It should have a building, it deserves a building, this town deserves a building in that location that matches the beauty of that course. Because as been stated, you parking there, you gotta get there at the right time. It's always busy, it's always packed. The people in this town love that area. They love that course. They want a restaurant in there. We have so many great ones in this town. And yeah, renovating it, to find a tenant that's gonna wanna go in there, if renovating it, those costs are gonna be astronomical to get some restaurant in there that's gonna wanna even slightly deal with this. But again, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Just be very clear, or try to make it clear. To renovate or not renovate, to restore or not restore, to demolish or not demolish, those aren't decisions that the commission makes and can make. Those are decisions only the town can make. The only question we're asked to decide is, does the building have historical significance? It may not be architectural significance, it may or may not. Stacy Spees argues that it has cultural historical significance. She's not arguing architectural historical significance. Actually, that's very interesting. It's been a country club since 1922. So her argument is a cultural historical. So when we sit here and vote, we don't vote the building goes up, the building goes down. That's a decision made by the building department. The only vote we take is, does it have historical significance, whether it's cultural, architectural, or not. And the only role as far as the demolition, if we vote, and we may not vote unanimously, but if we vote, majority vote, that it does have historical significance, then we can apply the demolition delay, which would hold up demolition for 9 months. Okay? But we cannot stop demolition, we cannot save the building. Those are decisions, and that role, that function is with the town. Just to make that very clear.
Can I ask a question for clarification on that? So the building having cultural significance, does that mean that the cultural significance could be potentially maintained, that it remains a golf course and it's sort of like, or it means same like material? I guess I just don't know.
Yeah, frankly, I was not familiar with that.
You know what I mean?
Kristen said the last page, that criterion, the cultural significance.
Versus, let's say,
Very interesting.
Versus putting up a DPW facility there and making it up, right? That would not be in line with the cultural kind of prior use, but if you maintain it. So that's like a question I think would be worth digging into to understand what does that particular element mean, and if there are historical elements within the building. I mean, again, I don't know how this RFP process or RFQ or whatever the process would be with ultimately for construction, but if there are elements to be retained, that's in some way, like, to me, that's part of the discussion. It could be part of the scoring of how something is scored. I don't know. But again, I think that's where the collaborative piece comes in.
Can I ask another question? So as a committee, so you decide it has historical, cultural significance. So then do you also as a committee think, okay, so what now happens to that building? Because if that's decided and it can't be a restaurant or whatever, the golf pro shop, what happens to the building? Because I think a lot of people's concerns are, so say you guys, the historical commission decides it has historical, cultural, and then what happens to the building? Does it sit there and just rot away? Because now what happens to the building? If you all decide, okay, we're going to delay demolition, have it goes forward, and it goes forward and somehow becomes a historical building, what happens to the building then?
Can I just add into that? Just I think that's a really good question. So you make a decision that it has historical cultural significance.
I'm sorry, I'm not saying that that's the decision.
No. I'm just saying. Well, let's just say as an example. So you feel it has historical significance, okay? And so we have the situation that you put a delay on it at that point. Can you delay it irrevocably to the end of time?
9 months. 9 months.
9 months, and then what happens after that? Does it go, because my sense would be if you say it has historical significance, then you probably need to make some sort of a recommendation after that 9 months saying we should restore it.
No.
Okay? So
Town can act.
it would theoretically just sit there.
Town can act.
I think during that period, aren't the people, owners, or who is responsible for the building supposed to be trying to find solutions other than demolishing it, possibly even selling it and having it moved to another location? Isn't that?
Yeah.
Kristen, let me just, there are two examples I could think of, Bob. One is the Spur House. We delayed the demolition of that because we wanted to save the house itself because of its historical significance. And that we accomplished through the Historical Commission. The second one is that there was a house across the street from the post office. And those people that have been in town may remember that house. That we also did put a demolition delay on. However, we were never able to find anybody that was willing to take that house over and do it. So that house then, at that point it was a 6-month delay, that house was demolished.
Okay.
And so those are the kind of the way things.
And with the Spur House, you found someone to buy the house.
Exactly.
Okay.
Beautiful. So you'd have to find
That's
someone to
helpful.
buy
Thank
the
you,
country club, basically.
Exactly, and renovate it.
But that would be if the town wanted to sell it.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of ifs
As I
there.
said, those are kind of the examples to look at
Okay,
that
Blueberry
thank you.
House.
we're dealing with.
The Blueberry House.
Yeah,
We delayed
Blueberry
that
House,
as well.
Blueberry Lady's House is another example
Yeah.
of one that we were not able to save.
Okay.
But it generates discussion in that time period. So that's the purpose of the delay, not
Required to
to,
hold,
Yeah.
public discussion, we had required to hold public hearing.
not to make a, headache for the whole town, but it generates interest, such as the Spur House, and it's a beautiful house across the street from the library. So that was a success, I would say.
So you guys take a lot of Excedrin.
What's that?
You take a lot of Excedrin when you deal with things.
And just to further clarify, if we do vote that it is culturally or architecturally significant, it doesn't put any kind of special protections on the property.
Okay.
That has to be like a landmark status. So like, even if it's a national registered property, that doesn't necessarily protect it. So it would have to be like, literally, your example earlier, if George Washington stopped there, slept in a room, etc., that would be like, those sorts of things are criteria for like a landmark status. So like, you're talking about all kinds of preservation restrictions on wallpaper and exteriors and materials, and that's what everybody starts freaking out about, like window replacements and things like that. That is like, that's landmark, basically landmark status. That's not what we're talking about here.
Is this building within the town's historic district?
It's right.
I see the, I know just where the post is, so I'm just wondering the impact
beyond.
because it's,
So yes, there's that row of Greek Revival houses, and it's the last one.
yep.
So it kind of bookends that district, but it didn't, somehow the line didn't get, it got drawn on this side rather than that side. I don't know what the history of that is, but.
Maybe because it wasn't a residence, I don't know. I wasn't on the commission
That could be.
there, but
Are there any other questions or comments?
Can I just ask a question? This is total ignorance on this one, so I apologize. But so Form B, take it out of the town. Say I own a residence downtown, private. Does the commission decide that they're going to file a Form B, or is it the owner that files it? How does a Form B
there may already be
start?
one.
But say there isn't,
It's an
you
old
know?
house. Oh,
So,
Actually, I don't live downtown in Historic. I used to grew up with one right in Church Street, though.
so the Form B can come about in a variety of different ways. It can be done through, like, you might own a house and never know that a Form B is being done on it. Typically, it doesn't involve somebody visiting, like walking on your property. Typically, it's done archivally based on the history of the house. Sometimes there will be photographs from the street or something like that. In this case, she was able to walk around the building, but so it can be, you could ask a historian to do a Form B on your house if you're interested in its history, and then that will get submitted to the state, or, I mean, there's a variety of different ways. A lot of historic houses in Westborough don't have a Form B, so typically we're doing the Form Bs to get information.
But I guess to the question, is it the owner's request, or like, could the next door neighbor say, I'm going to file a Form B and not even tell
You could do
the
that,
neighbor?
theoretically.
It just files it, puts it on record?
Theoretically, yes.
They could.
they have to pay for it.
Is that-
Yeah, they'd have to pay for it,
Pay
and
for
and the state would review it and decide whether or not, you know, I mean, if somebody made up a bunch of stuff about a house, the state has to review it and then put it in their database.
No,
So
that's
they'll-
helpful.
They'll either
Again,
accept it or they
it was
don't.
my ignorance.
Yep.
So who filed the Form B on this? Property.
It isn't filed yet.
We haven't filed it yet, but we
commissioned it.
We commissioned it.
Oh, so
We
you
hired.
paid someone to?
Yes. A third party to not be,
Because we had no background information on the building. We knew that we were going to need it to make our decision on historical significance. So this is not to be acting in ignorance. We hired someone to do this. Now we have facts.
And in the past, this has never come up that you thought this was like on the commission about that property? That a Form B would have to be filed, like to get more information on it?
well, it was never under threat.
It was never under threat. This is the first time it's
I
been
mean,
under threat.
It's a
Also,
question of
changing
allocating
it
resources.
Totally doesn't mean, like, they just didn't demolish the original building, so that doesn't count as being under threat, because it's totally changed from original pictures.
Interior.
Oh,
and
interior.
And exterior.
Yeah.
I mean, you can recognize the interior and exterior. I mean, there is similarity there.
We only have a role when demolition is on the plan.
Right.
Not adding a porch or something.
Yeah.
Hazel.
We have no role
Sorry.
there.
I just wanted to add one thing on this. One of the things when I was on the commission we talked about, and I think the commission has begun to work on, is to try to look at all historical houses in town on which we do not have information, and then see whether we can work through with the Form B. So we need, as a commission at this point, we don't really have the staff is one of the problems, but we need to go through and see which houses we have Form Bs on and which ones we do not have Form Bs on, that maybe we should be looking at getting Form Bs on.
That's why there's a warrant article right now.
Right.
What
Yes.
number it is?
Yeah.
We're working on that right now. Phil's-
Exactly.
That we can
So I
pay
just
someone
wanted
to accomplish that.
And that's a
Get our
funding
ducks in a row.
opportunity through this Community Preservation Act,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
As well, so those
It
funds
is.
could be submitted by the commission
But we
to be
do
used.
need more staff here to help with this. I mean, I think.
Sure, yeah, I mean,
one of-
separate from that.
One of the problems is that we've not really had the staffing we've needed in this office to be able to go ahead and do some of these
Yeah,
projects,
huge projects.
which we're all trying to do to see what historical, keep the historical view of this town. And that's one of the things that I think has always been the purpose of the Historical Commission, is to maintain our historical community.
Anything else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your appreciate it.
You want to go up, is that okay? I'm standing.
I took the floor small on the photos.
Okay.
Historical Commission has its own email.
Sorry.
Sort of do. Why don't you just send it
Yeah,
to me?
sort of.
I think you have my number. Yeah, from the grant.
Sorry.
Why don't you just send it to me and I can give it to
That's
you.
just a
At
minute.
least you get a better idea of the inside.
That's a minute.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be
I
great.
sometimes scribble on the agenda.
Yeah.
And if anyone wanted to give comments, what would be the best way?
You mean in terms of,
Their opinion of the golf.
yeah, you mean submitting more opinions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, they can do
Well
that.
done. Well spoken.
Thank you, Hazel.
Thanks, Doug.
Well, funding
What
is
was that
very
again?
important in this office,
They can email.
which is why I was making.
Why don't I send you an email address?
Right.
Thank you.
That'd be good.
That would be good, because I do have a
But
store.
it was great having your input.
Yeah.
Even before
I'll
you
make it-
say any of your text, when you announce, I'm Hazel Nurse at Nurse Road. It's like, now this matters.
Collective sigh. Like,
Have a good rest of the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks very much. Good to
you.
see you.
Yeah, good seeing you.
Take care.
And
I forget if she has a sweet tooth. Oh, that's all right.
All right,
No, thank you.
so we're a little behind.
that was a long 5 minutes.
So the second agenda item is discussion and approval of November 29 meeting minutes, 2023.
Yeah, I saw a couple typos on page 2,
Yep.
top of page 2. Where it says,
I made a note.
he discussed the fact,
Yes. F is missing here.
There's something wrong in the next
and the next line,
Okay, most.
which he noted was not.
Yes,
an
okay.
N.
All right, thank you.
Other than that, that was it.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll fix it.
Thank you.
You know, I was surprised when the woman who had been on the Golf Club Reuse Commission wondered why no one from the Historic Commission had attended any of their meetings. It was called a reuse committee. Why would we feel we had to go and plead for not demolishing something they were going to reuse? The back building over there, that's a reuse project. They're now the
No,
TV
except
station.
It's just, yeah, to be fair, it was use, but still,
The golf club, oh,
use.
committee.
But no, someone else made that point. It wasn't the golf club demolition, it was the use. Right, so we were not concerned.
no.
The red flags weren't jumping out.
Do we
We
have a
learned
motion?
about all this on Facebook,
Yes.
not through any official channel.
My question to her would have been, why didn't you come? Exactly.
Where's the candy dish?
I decided she was a guest, I would be. Polite.
Okay.
I bit my tongue too.
We're still.
Not open. They're still.
Are there any other?
That's okay.
Do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. Do we have a vote to approve the minutes as noted?
Yes, even
Okay.
though I wasn't there.
Accepted. All right. The next thing is the MHC. This is the application for the fill, this project that we were talking about. The deadline is Monday.
Not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. Okay. Next time, next round.
I had a medical problem. You had a lot of problems.
Yes,
And Sue had a lot of problems.
that makes for a lot of problems.
And this other,
And yeah, we only
Damn it,
basically had a
Lisa.
month to do this, a full application.
What is the time frame for the next round or whatever?
It's the same, I think it's the same next year, yeah.
well, what we can do is we can try to get a warrant on,
Yes,
because it's still the same.
that's right. So we should keep the warrant article. They are looking for a very specific number from us.
Do we have a draft of a warrant article?
Yes, it went out. It just doesn't have a price. It doesn't
They want
have a
a
dollar.
30K was the number that we.
That was the guess.
Yeah.
But if you had more
We
or
don't-
less,
Well, I think you and I exchanged, there are hundreds of properties that we could go after.
right,
But I think in discussion with Jen back when, it turned out that, and the pricing on Sue Spees' thing, for 30K, it's like double 60K, we'd be able to do 100 houses.
right.
So that's not all of them, but we'll
Make
have
a
head start.
significant dent.
So the main point is, no one's touched this subject except for that case.
For years.
30, 40 years.
Yeah,
And that's what we're trying to do. And in 30 or 40 years, many properties now become 50 years and older.
right. That's true. That's true. All right, so maybe that becomes an agenda item at our next meeting to discuss more specifically your master list again that you could bring. And we can go over that
Okay, we
and
can
try to
go.
strategize which ones get prioritized. All right, CPA update. Has the CPA met recently?
We've had one meeting recently, no.
Have they met since
Yeah,
when,
another
December?
meeting. Yeah, there'll be another meeting, hopefully sometime in February. And it'll be a training meeting. The thing is that we have to do a plan, and the plan is very specific as to what it has to have in it. And there's a very good site that tells us what they are, but so we're going to have a trainer come in and talk to us about how to formulate a plan so that we can move forward. And that has not been set up.
Many professionals object to the use of the word trainer.
Oh,
Are those meetings open to the public or?
no.
Okay.
Well, they're posted. I don't know whether, maybe,
I was just
I
curious.
suppose, yeah, they're not closed meetings, so they're posted, so I guess anybody could
Probably like
attend.
our meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody can attend.
Okay. If you're that
Well,
interested.
if the plan is developed and things go along, what is the time frame in which we could actually, anybody could actually utilize some of the CPA funding?
Probably not till next year. No, 2 years, I think, down the road. There's because you have to do the plan, that has to be accepted, I believe, by the town, and then you can move forward at that point. So there's still.
Take applications.
Yeah, look at applications, so I wouldn't look before 2025. I mean, possibly the fall town meeting, that the town has to approve. Possibly the fall town meeting this year, in October, otherwise it would be next March.
Do you have an idea how big the pot is? Or would be?
No, I've not a clue.
Okay. All right. Cindy, discussion of design review board meetings.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, we've had 2 design review board meetings since our last meeting, and they talked about a couple of things, which were the Del Webb Chauncey Lake people have come in, and they needed to make, or they were asking about making modifications in 6 of the buildings that are going to be built on that property, which they needed to make changes to from the original designs in order to comply with new energy codes, and it affected the roof lines in particular, and they were making some exterior changes. So they wanted to talk about those designs, and that would be an iterative process, I think, to come up with the changes that they want to make, but that was...
So they're going to put 6 more buildings up there?
Yes, that was part of the original. I think all there would be 12, something like that.
Something like that.
12 or 13, 12 maybe?
I was gonna say, I thought it was more than that.
Maybe
It's
more,
like 14 maybe.
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah.
15 or
But
17.
this particular thing
Right,
affects
this is kind of
6,
the
I think.
second phase on that. Yeah, they've done the first phase, just about finished that, and this is the second phase on this, but because of the new stretch code, which the town has adopted, they had to make some changes in the roof line from the original ones, but they're gonna be, they've done sort of the front half, which looks out more towards Chauncey Lake, and this is gonna be more of the back half, which is looking kind of in the other direction.
It's sort of filling out a kind of an oval,
Yeah.
sort of big oval shape,
Right.
circular oval.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then we had some discussion about from the owner of 3 Summer Street, which is the building that has hairspray and a couple of karate shop.
Oh, and Vivacious
Large.
Nutrition.
And Vivacious,
Yes.
it was in fact in regard to that business, they want to install a door, a new entrance to the building, and another window next to it, and to make it more amenable to that person, the vivacity. Yeah,
Oh, Vivacity,
her
is that what it is? Vivacity?
business, and so it came in for the design and the specs related to that. Yeah, it's been approved, and we'll go ahead. And then there was more discussion about the Phase 2 of Village Commons, which is at 1 Gleason Street. And the Phase 2 involves building an apartment building, basically, on the property, which will have 40 units, I think, and they're talking about the design there and how to fit it in with the rest of the environment. And I think the last thing that we talked about was taking a look at the current design guidelines and discussing them and reviewing them and potentially, updating them and changing them appropriately, but addressing the sign portion of the design guidelines first. That's where we are with that. So that was it.
Okay. Great. Mr. Phil.
Is Hazel still here?
She is. She's going to check you.
Well, I was looking for support. Let me turn around. Just-
Fact check you.
An honored guest.
When you
Take it back.
Checking with a hockey stick.
I volunteered to be the quote liaison to the planning board for here.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And the methodology that I accepted was I read the minutes.
That's fine.
And,
Or you
well,
can
that's
watch it
fine,
on-
assuming that the minutes don't get delayed like 2 and 3 months, which has happened recently.
You could watch it on TV.
You think I want to sit there for 3 hours watching TV?
Oh, no, we don't have that.
No, I've tried that once. So I'm just giving you that as a preamble.
Okay.
Because I'm going to go through what I read and what seemed to make sense to bring to this group. And if you have something to add, take it out and decide.
Oh, very good.
Okay. The last time I talked to you guys was to report on the August 22nd meeting.
Wow.
That shows you how far back that was.
Okay.
Now, a combination of the minutes being slow or me not attending a meeting, you know, that's where I'm going to talk about the September 5th meeting and a few other meetings up until the last one that was December 12th. Now, the last meeting, they may have just approved the minutes, but the point is they don't publish it until it's approved. So there's always this couple of month delay. And so some of it is kind of like, oh, that. But it's sort of interesting every now and then. On September 5, they discussed site plan review for 5460 and 64 Otis Street in order to give the town easements to construct the BWALT sidewalk. There was a public hearing continuing. It's about something I think Cindy mentioned, adding a commercial component at Village Common, 1 Gleason Street. And they, very complex discussion, and they agreed to, in September, to supposed to have a continuation. So there's a couple of issues here that they come back month after month after month and continue having public meetings. There was some minor wording to the plan for 180, 182 Turnpike, a site that we are very familiar with, because that's where the car dealership goes.
Which one?
Yeah.
The one behind Walker Meadow.
180, 182, they're changing the site plan. So, they accepted Quick Farm Road as a public way, and they approved an A&R plans for 161 Milk Street and 220 Turnpike Road, and there's again it's a bunch of details. Public hearing regarding 161 Milk Street, where the old roller rink building is going to be converted to self-storage units. Heavy discussion, this was on September 19th, heavy discussion, abutters raised several issues, and we will continue that on the October 3rd meeting. There was a long discussion involving water treatment. There was a presentation that the planning board got on September 3rd about the the glorious new community center, 1500 Union Street. And they continued talking about the Village Common at 1 Gleason. So, another October 17th, they talked about that special permit at Village Common, and they decided to continue the meeting on the next month. They'll get this, it might be easy if I just waited until they made a decision and then told you. There's a facility, this was in November, a facility or development called Writings 2 that got approval for an A&R. And they continued the special permit discussion for 1 Gleason Street. They were trading off whether they were going to get enough parking spaces for the residential part, and it'll be continued on December 12th meeting. Oh, they got an important administrative matter. Now, the director of planning can sign decisions on behalf of the members. Doesn't have to wait for the members themselves. The director.
Okay.
Power. They released more lots for Ridings 2. And they approved the site plan for 161 Milk Street. Oh no, they closed the public hearing and approved the site plan for 1 Gleason. And another interesting little thing was that apparently the MBTA is putting out some zoning act, and there will be a public hearing about it in February because it's going to affect, or could affect, the town, but we don't know yet. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She doesn't want to add anything.
I'll answer any questions.
She's our
people have questions. Yeah, the MBTA hearing is at our next meeting, which is next Tuesday. What happened is the state law was passed that if you are what's called an MBA town community, which means you have a railroad station, then you're required to have a certain number of housing within that area of the railroad station. Multiple housing within a certain distance from the railroad station, or provide public housing in other parts of the community. And actually, Westborough has sufficient housing to comply with the new law already.
But we're still building Gleason?
There's still Gleason. Gleason is an apartment building. There's that, and then there's a small project going across the street on Smith Valley Parkway.
Commercial.
Oh, it's commercial?
No, Phil, this is the one that's small houses. It probably hasn't come out yet on that. There is a development that's going in across from where Village Commons is. Does everybody know where that is on Smith Valley Parkway? If you go down by the railroad station, continue on past the railroad station, there are Westborough Village, which is up on the hill there, and then Village Commons, which is down sort of more next to the street, which has about 17 units in there. Across the street from those is a new development that's going in of mini houses. They're going to be about 600 square feet.
Kind of like what Farouk's development was?
No, these will really be mini about 600 square feet with a living room, 1 bedroom, and a kitchen area that will be sort of in a small development, which will be within walking distance of the railroad station, of course. And they are hopefully will be for people who live in town. They're going to be rentals. Okay. So hopefully be for people that work in town that need a rental space. But they're sort of Cape Cod looking, very attractive, and they'll be all with the cul-de-sac. So that's a project that's coming in that we're working on at the moment.
Okay.
So that also will comply with the MBTA thing, but it also will provide more rental housing for hopefully, it could be a couple there.
Yeah.
That would be able to get some housing, rental housing in the community.
More kids.
No, that's 9 kids.
Right, yeah, but the 1 bedroom.
600 square feet.
Yeah.
That's gonna
Right.
They're not gonna have many kids. That's
Yeah.
All right, are there any other items, agenda items, any comments, anything else? Phil, would you like
I
to
move.
make the motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay. I have a second for
second.
adjourning. Marjorie, all in favor? All right, that's the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. 8:15.